You're listening to IRN, the Inception Radio Network, Chicago, Illinois.
Archangels, ghosts, and Bigfoot. Oh my. It's just another night for Supernatural Girlz. Real stories, real answers to life's biggest supernatural mysteries. And now for another exciting interview with paranormal experts from this world and others. Here's your host, paranormal researcher Patricia Baker, on the one, the only Supernatural Girlz.
Welcome, everyone, to another exciting episode of Supernatural Girlz. I am your host, Patricia Baker, and I am here with my fabulous numerology expert and co-host, PK. Hi, PK. How are you tonight?
Absolutely fabulous. It's only 107 here today.
Oh, my gosh. Doesn't it make you melt?
I'm losing weight really quick.
Wow. I guess that's one way to do it, huh? You don't need to lose weight, though. Come on.
Sounded good.
Wow. Well, we've got a fabulous show tonight. Oh, my goodness. So many exciting things to talk about. We have an extraordinary guest, Dr. William Tiller, and he is from the Tiller Institute, and he is going to talk to us tonight about the power of intention. Now, we've heard about the power of intention and what you think you create and all of those things, but Bill is going to get down to brass tacks with us and share with us some of his scientific research and what he has found. It's remarkable. You and I have been reading all the white papers on this, watching the videos. It's really exciting work, and I'm so glad we're able to talk with him tonight so our audience can hear all of this. It is groundbreaking.
It is.
Yes. So we're going to bring Bill on in just a few minutes, but first, I wanted to go back to our show for a minute. Last week, we talked about the Oklahoma Girl Scout murders, and we had a really terrific lineup of guests, and one of them was Native American medicine man Michael Bastine, who's a good friend of ours, very close to us, and a wonderful human being. And one of the things he said I want to bring back around is about your ability, PK, to work with the numbers and really assess a personality, what this person is capable of, and on down the line. Because what we were talking about last week, if you haven't heard the show, everybody, go back and listen to it in the archives. It was amazing. But Michael said if the medicine man who had trained the alleged murderer in all of these types of magic from Native American tradition, if he had had access to PK, and PK, what you could have told him about this alleged murderer, then Michael said all of this may have been avoided. It was a very powerful statement.
Oh, wow.
Very powerful. And again, knowledge is power. And PK, you're able to really offer that type of deep insight about personalities. And this is something that Michael said medicine men and women need to be very cautious of when they take on an apprentice. They need to make sure they're working with a stable individual. And unfortunately, that didn't happen. And these three little girls, it cost them their lives. So anyways, but again, I want to acknowledge you, PK, for your ability to assess personality and to also provide insight into people's lives. So if you want to reach out to PK, her website is patriciakirkman.com. And Patricia, you offer readings and all kinds of insight about business and things like that. But I just wanted to bring that back around. It was a really important statement that Michael made. And it was a great show, everybody. So go back and listen. If you missed it, our archives are on our website, supernaturalgirlz.com. They are also on inceptionradionetwork.com. So you can listen at your leisure. And Inception also offers apps for your smartphone. Again, everything's so convenient these days. It's amazing. I love it. So be sure to also sign up for our newsletter, The Fringe Files, which you can find at supernaturalgirls.com. And you'll get just a once-a-week newsletter updating you on the show, any new paranormal stuff going on, and it's well worth spending a few minutes just giving us your email address. You can cancel it at any time, but it's there if you would like to join our community. So, Patricia, what's going on for the numbers tomorrow? What do we got happening?
Well, you might just as well get your work clothes on because that's what it's all about. Putting things together, working and clearing the deck for things that you've had ongoing for a while. And it's a good time to take a good look at your overall feelings of well-being. Practice breathing. It's going to sound crazy, but that's the best thing you can do because as you bring in that breath, you clear out a lot of the negativity that you're holding on to. But you're going to find out that exercise is not what tomorrow's all about. In fact, get a shovel, dig your flowers out, do whatever you need to do that way, but that's the best you can do. Clean a closet. Make yourself feel good about what you're doing, and you're going to feel great the following day when you've got that spare time.
So it's all about accomplishing some task, something, whatever it is. Okay.
Well, the good thing about it is while you're doing all that work, you're able to stop and think and start using all these questions that are floating around in the mind. Everybody's reviewing and redoing because this month is a review of last year. So kind of pick up what you lost and didn't keep track of and get it put back together. It's a Band-Aid.
Sounds like a good opportunity, though. It really does.
It is.
Yeah.
Definitely a good opportunity.
Sounds good to review that. Well, excellent. Well, thank you so much for that. That's great. We'll know now what to do tomorrow, how to use that energy to our best advantage. And I also wanted to mention we have just a little bit of paranormal news, and it's, normally I don't talk about these kinds of things with conspiracy type stuff. We tend to stay away from that, right, PK?
Definitely.
But I have to mention this because it's so odd. We have been reading this and following this for the last couple of weeks, you and I, that there have been a number of doctors that have been murdered in Florida. 5 are missing, 8 are dead, and some people, I got this from some health news sites like Health Ranger, etc. Some people are linking it to these doctors' knowledge of the Nagalase enzyme and how that is a big part of creating chronic disease, cancer, autism, Alzheimer's, and the product called Gcmaf. If you guys haven't heard about it, get up on the internet and read about it. It is a fascinating product. This was discovered by Dr. Yamamoto in Japan years ago, but his research was covered up. And now it's coming back again. Doctors in Europe and in the United States are starting to use Gcmaf to treat all kinds of things, all the things I just mentioned that are so devastating, getting good results. And this is a natural product with no side effects. So you can imagine, you can easily connect the dots as to why some of these doctors might have been taken out. I hate to think that way, but pharmacology is big business.
Oh, and, isn't it, though?
They don't want cures. They want customers, I think. So and I know you agree, it's difficult. We want to be good health consumers, learn how to make better lifestyle choices, take care of ourselves. But when something happens, we'd like to have a treatment without all the side effects. So this is a very strange story, and it's worth following, everybody, and it is worth investigating Gcmaf. There is a lot of information on the internet about it right now. It's almost like, I think in some ways, if there's somebody offering these doctors, then it's working against them because it's just serving to bring more attention to Gcmaf. So look it up, everybody. It's a very interesting treatment, and again, with no side effects. So that's something to check out.
The scary part is that this has a month is a 7, which deals with secrets or secretiveness. So that adds even more to paying attention to what's really taking place.
Oh, okay. So it is right in line. Mm-hmm. Oh, boy. Yes. So, we have to take our health into our own hands. In my opinion, you've got to take responsibility and not just expect a single pill to be a magic, cure. Sometimes it can be, I'm sure, but that's not the usual way. We got to dig in and roll up our sleeves and find out what the best treatment is for us. So, anyways, that's the news. So let's move on because we have, again, an excellent guest tonight. We're very honored to have with us Dr. William Tiller. He is an expert in the field of psychoenergetics, and he's so many things. He's a hardcore scientist. That's how he started out. He was fellow to the American Academy for the Advancement of Science, Professor Emeritus. He's, again, Bill Tiller of Stanford University's Department of Materials Science, spent 34 years in academia after 9 years as an advisory physicist with the Westinghouse Research Laboratories. He has published over 250 conventional scientific papers, 3 books, and several patents. Well, I could just go on and on about Dr. Tiller here, but then we'd never get to talk to him. So I think, everybody, you're getting the feel for who Dr. Tiller is. Bill, welcome to the show.
Nice to be here.
We're so lucky to have you tonight.
Yes.
I think you need to understand that I question what you call paranormal girls, because all girls are paranormal.
Oh, I like that.
Oh, he's a smart man.
Yes, he is. He knows how to give us the compliments that we want to hear. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, thank you, Bill. Now, you've had, it's not just what you're sharing with us tonight, it's who you are. I mean, you have made some very interesting choices and really stuck your neck out in a lot of ways with psychoenergetic science. Tell us about you. You started out as an orthodox scientist. What happened?
Well, it's an interesting adventure. And of course, my Stanford colleagues at the moment think of me as a heretic, which is okay. I suppose I am, at least in this lifetime, and probably have been in other lifetimes. In any event, the issue is there is today's orthodox science, which is stuck in the box of distance time only, and they're trapped in that box. We are moving towards a much greater aspect of understanding of nature. And eventually, you folks, the people who pay for the freight, you will urge them strongly, if you're wise, to get out of the box, because the universe is much bigger than they think it is. Anyway, how did I get to move in this direction?
Yes.
Other than the fact that this stuff was always interesting to me, and I thought of it as just not understood, not scientifically understood. And when Jean and I left Westinghouse, and we went to Stanford with our 2 kids in the back of the car, as we were driving across the country, Jean said, "Bill, when we get to California, let's try to pull together our spiritual life." I said, "Sure, that sounds fine. Let's try to do that." Oh, so nice. The way we set out to do that was to get involved and come to an understanding of Edgar Cayce, originally called the Miracle Man from Virginia Beach. Mm-hmm. And of course, I don't think of these things as miracles. I think of them just as new physics. So in any event, we started down this path by becoming daily meditators. And that was a very powerful renewal in this lifetime for us. And it was a joyful experience.
Now, was this any particular type of meditation that you did?
We used Edgar Cayce's approach to it. He had a very simple procedure. Uh-huh. And we followed his procedure. And we would change it when we felt it needed more oomph or needed to move along in path with our growing level of consciousness by the experiences of our life. As we dug deeper and deeper into this level of understanding, which I call inner self-management. And I got sabbatical at the end of the 1960s, and so I and my family went to England. I was on a Fulbright fellowship, and as I got on the airplane, I picked up this book, Psychic Discoveries Behind the Iron Curtain by Ostrander and Schroeder.
That's a great.
And it's a great book. I knew a great deal about that book, or about the topics of that book. I had been exploring this area of activity theoretically for some time and communicating with people around the world on this topic. And as I was reading the book, I was very impressed with what the Russians were doing. They used the word psychoenergetic in order that their masters would think that they were doing something meaningful and useful. And so I have picked up the use of that word. That's where it came from for me. But partway along this path, I sort of had a thought in my head which indicated, how might the universe be constructed to allow this crazy seeming kind of stuff to naturally coexist with the orthodox science that I was doing every day at Stanford with my PhD students. And to Oxford in England, I basically started to write the books I had promised to write. And about 3 weeks into that, I kept having this thought: how might the universe be constructed to allow this crazy seeming kind of stuff to naturally coexist with the orthodox science I was doing every day? And after a while, I swore a little and said, I'm going to try to find out how this comes about. And I spoke with Jean, my wife, and said, I'd like us to do this in the morning. I'd like to go into meditation and hold this statement as a brick as if we're supplicants, and ask that question and see what materializes for us during the hour. And so we did this, and the first day, when we came out of meditation, there were, of course, lots of other questions. And there was no definitive answer, of course, but it was a start. And I spent the rest of the day asking myself questions up in my office to see if the stuff that came forward violated any experimental data that I knew of in nature or that I'd read about. And there was nothing, but there were a number more questions. And the second day, we went into meditation, and I hold the original brick of the question and a whole bunch of other questions. And by the end of the hour, there was again some bit of enlightenment in this process. And we would chat about it after coming out of meditation, and she always had good insights, and so we would talk about it, and then I would go to my study and work, trying to understand, did it violate anything that was present in experimental data? I didn't really care what people's theoretical data was. Doesn't mean it wasn't good, but on this particular topic, it didn't ever seem to be meaningful. And so we did that every day for 6 months, and at the end of the 6 months, there was an answer to the question. And I thought that, go ahead.
You're so lucky because you have a wonderful wife who was able to
absolutely
do this with you. And I think it's so much more powerful when you can do this daily with a partner.
Yes.
Do you think so? It just seems
absolutely.
So
I mean, I could not have done this without Jean, and with the part you're going to hear, commits her pretty heavily. In any event, I came to the conclusion that this area of work was much more important to humanity than what I was doing every day with my PhD students at Stanford. And I knew it was risky, but I decided, well, I first tried to see if I could get someone else to take on the task to seriously work on this, but I didn't really get any takers. I finally decided it had to be me, but I didn't have enough time to do it. I mean, I was chairman of the department. I was doing my own research. I had government committees. I had commercial committees and things. And so the only thing I could think of to give me enough time to do this was first to get rid of my government committees, get rid of my professional committees, and give up being department chair in order to have time to do my orthodox science and as well do this other science in parallel. And the way I started down that path, of course, I upset my colleagues and all that sort of thing. But fortunately, when I took on the post at Stanford, I joined as a full professor with tenure, which means that so long as I do my day job and do it properly, then I still had my job, and I needed that to feed my family. So anyway, the way I used the extra time is I divided it into 3 boxes. The first box was continue to do experiential development of self. That is inner self-management. The second was to continue to ask the question, how is the universe constructed? To allow all of this stuff to naturally coexist with orthodox science. That is, put it in the perspective of science. And the third was to do experiments to keep the theory honest. And I started that in 1971, and I'm still doing it.
Oh, my goodness.
And you've done a great job because the research is compelling and it's consistent as you've been able to reproduce this over and over again. You're really onto something.
Oh, yes. I think it is the science of this century and at least the next century.
Absolutely. Well, let me ask you.
That's my working hypothesis. You go ahead.
Well, I wanted to ask you, because Patricia and I, PK and I were talking about this today. So many people, Bill, have heard over and over again that we create our own reality. And if you just change your mind, you'll change your reality. And it really sounds good. But all the people that have read the books, listened to the seminars, et cetera, when you check in with them, you say, well, did you change your life? A lot of them, unfortunately, have to say, no, not really. So I know that there is tremendous power in intention. And I know what your experiments are not about what I'm talking about right now. But I do know that our listeners want to hear from you on this point. It's like, why doesn't this work sometimes when people think they're putting their intention on something and they're trying to make a change in their lives for the better, and it just doesn't pull through?
Well, my response to that is you first have to realize that an intention is an act of creation. It is not the same as a prayer. A prayer is asking for something. An intention is an act of creation. And we all know what the fruit of working out in a normal gym is. Mm-hmm. If you want to be an athlete, you have to do the exercise. Right. You have to do the work. If you want to create, you have to learn how to do it, and you have to do the work. I mean, it's your job because you're trying to create something. And to create it, you've got to work at it. It's not given to you. If it is given to you, then you're destroyed. You've got to become a creator. Okay, the way I looked at this from the beginning is, first of all, we're all spirits, eternal and indestructible, but we need a bio-body suit in order to experience this domain of reality, this distance-time reality. And you have to work at it. Our spiritual parents dressed us in these bio-body suits, put us in this playpen that we call a universe in order to grow in coherence, in order to develop our gifts of intentionality, in order to become what we were intended to become, which is co-creators with our spiritual parents. That's a big-time thing, to become a co-creator with our spiritual parents, and all of us can do it, early or late, but not without doing the exercises, not without doing the work.
And the work is
self-development.
Okay, self-development.
And I'll describe some experiments.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the issue is, first of all, let me answer the question about what does it mean to be coherent? For example, if you have a 90-watt light bulb in front of you, there's some light that comes, not a lot of light, and not a lot because a lot of the photons interfere with each other, they entangle, and you destroy the light aspect. But if you could have that same number of photons come out per unit time, but to come out in phase with each other, and we can now technically do that, then what you have is something very much like a laser. And so huge energy densities come out. And for that 100-watt light bulb, the intensity of the energy may be something as 100 times the surface of the sun.
That's a huge improvement.
Exactly. And now we're using LED lasers in the light bulbs of cars and other light bulbs. So we can see how we're talking about physics here. And that, of course, is a conventional physics. Many of the other things are not a conventional physics. And the issue is the development of our gifts of intentionality. I mean, that's what they are. They're gifts of ours, but just like all the other gifts. But the other gifts are one kind. They're in the distance time level of reality. The bio-body suit that we have has two levels. The outermost level is the distance time domain of reality. The inner level is the acupuncture meridian domain of reality. That's mainly superluminal, which means faster than the velocity of electromagnetic light. Whereas the electric atom molecule one is all subluminal, slower than the velocity of electromagnetic light. So it is this second level of reality. Let's talk about that a little bit. In the 1970s, I built a little device which was a gas discharge device, which you could put a high voltage across it, but maybe 10 degrees below its normal breakdown voltage, so it could stay quiet for a day or whatever. And you could go up to it, you put your arms around it and intend to focus your body's energies into this device. And if you can do it effectively, then what you start hearing is burp, 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 and flashes of light, and you are igniting. You're igniting the discharge. Now
Wow.
you can go a little further. Let me just give you one more piece of this section. You put yourself in a big Faraday cage, human size, and you put this Faraday cage around this little gas discharge device and place it about 15 feet away from the big cage. And from there, you can intend to ignite the discharge. And you can, in fact, do that. And you can hear burp, 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 and you can go from 0 counts per second to 50,000, pardon me, per 5 minutes, 5 minutes
I know
to
that
50,000.
You are now offering this device, a similar device, not the one you're just talking about, for sale. And we're going to get into all of
Yeah,
that.
that's an unintentional device.
Right now.
That's the next step.
The
But I want
next
to
step, yeah.
indicate that when I was doing this,
Wait, I got to stop for a second here, Bill,
you got
because
to do something? Go ahead.
we got to take
right.
a short break, and we're
Okay.
going to come back. We're going to finish up this conversation. We're going to also get back to coherence and how that makes things happen or not. And
Right.
oh my gosh, we got a lot to cover. So everybody, stay tuned. You are listening to Supernatural Girlz Radio, and we are speaking with Dr. Bill Tiller about the power of intention, how to create your own life for real, guys. This is for real, guys and girls. So if you have a question, please call in. And the number is 888-919-2355. That number is 888-919-2355. And we will be right back. Welcome back, everyone, to Supernatural Girlz Radio. I am your host, Patricia Baker. I am here with my co-host, PK, and our very excellent and interesting guest, Dr. Bill Tiller. He's from the Tiller Institute, and we are talking about psychoenergetics. And not only are we talking about that, we are talking about how, guess what, everybody? Paranormal is normal. And we have a scientist here to back it up. So, PK, you and I were on the cutting edge as usual.
And of course. Was there a doubt?
Never. So, Bill, we were talking on the break a little bit about the energy that was coming out of you that was actually perceived, these subtle energies. But before we go into that, I just want to back up 1 minute, because we were talking about intention and how so many people have read these self-help books and think, why am I not able to create my life the way I want? But you brought up a word that is critical, and that word is coherence. So
Yes.
when people are not in coherence, they haven't done enough clearing work on themselves emotionally, mentally, spiritually, then it's kind of like that 90-watt light bulb you talked about.
Yeah, that's where we are as generally in consciousness of people. They're not terribly well developed. They've got a long way to go. I mean, we as humans will centuries down the road be able to do remarkable things ourselves. But let's not kid ourselves. It is a mistake if these things are given to us too easily. Let me give you an example that your people are facing. Let's suppose there are two individuals who like to run the hurdles and are very competent in running the low hurdles. And they decide they want to run the high hurdles. And person A starts and sets up the high hurdles where he wants to be or she wants to be, runs and knocks them down, puts them up again, tries again, knocks them down, puts them up again, tries again, knocks them down, and gave up. The second individual wants to do the same. Put up the high hurdles, ran them, knocked them down, put them up again, knocked them down, and then decided, oh, I perhaps put them up too high. Let me just put them a little higher than low hurdles. Ran them, knocked them down, put them up again, ran them, found that they could do it. And then practice at that level until they regenerated their low hurdle skill. And then they put them up a little higher and ran them, knocked them down. Ran them again, set them up, ran them again, knocked them down again. Put them up, and then found that they could run them. And then ran them a lot until they became smooth and effortless in it, and then put them up a little higher. And did this every step of the way until they got to the high hurdles and learned eventually to run them with ease and grace and had the usual skills that they have with low hurdles. That's the way we humans become, is we try until we can do it. Because we are creating.
Perfect. But that's a little difficult sometimes when you're dealing with the subtle energies. Now,
Of course.
there are people. I have a great story to share with you about the power of intention. And this woman I knew many years ago, she was an incredibly great therapist. And she was able to focus her intention fairly easily. And we had planned to organize everybody for this big workshop. There were like 50 people coming. And it was at my home in Connecticut. And one of the gas burners got stuck on. And the knob came off. When we were trying to turn the darn thing off, it wouldn't turn off. She walked over to it, and you could see the look on her face. It was totally one of focus. She took a pair of pliers and closed her eyes and turned the knob. The gas went off. But it was a wonderful lesson for me to watch someone who had that very strong level of coherence. She was single-minded, she was focused, and the power of intent. She thought, I'm going to envision myself turning this thing off, and that's exactly what happened.
Yeah. Okay. And I think the issue that's important in that is practice meditation. Really practice meditation. Become more coherent. And then more and more. And you'll find that and live a focused life, a disciplined life, and become something more and more. And the more you do, the more capable will you be in your ability to focus your mind and create things less probable.
And that's exactly what happened. So, and I know she was a meditator. That's one of the things that she did do, and I don't recall exactly what method she used, and it probably didn't matter.
Doesn't really matter.
Yeah,
You just find one that works for you, and you know it's all you. I mean, just keep trying, keep making the effort, keep believing you can do it.
And that's what happened. I mean, we were all in a panic. The rest of us were like, oh my God, this thing's going to burn the house down if we can't shut it off. And we have all these people coming. And she was just very calm. And I'll never forget this moment of how this happened. It was great lesson. So again, that level of coherence, how often does anybody have that? We're so scattered. And
we can have it as much as we want if we make the effort.
That's true. So it's not allowing these other things to kind of pull us in 50 different directions, right?
Let me go to the second piece of information I want to give you in this intention progress. The second one was I received a gift from a philanthropist to do 3 years of work, and it was big time, and I decided that I would put it to work to test the Descartes experiment of the 1600s. Descartes, now remember that the transition from theocracy to science began about 1500. And basically, even a century later, there was great confusion because people were still embedded in religion. Not that religion is bad per se, but it was getting in the way of the development of science. And so what Descartes, the assumption he made, and this I'm not stating exactly, but something close to this. He said, no human quality of consciousness, intention, emotion, mind, or spirit can significantly influence a well-designed target experiment in physical reality. Now that was a very powerful statement, and it allowed, in those days, it allowed a very clear discrimination between science and religion. But it had never been tested, never seriously been tested by science. And here we are 4 centuries later, and I decided, okay, that's where I'll use the money. I will test the Descartes experiment. That is, I will design 4 target experiments, just like those that I designed for my PhD students at Stanford. And the 4 were, the first was to take water and intend to increase its pH, which means its acid-alkaline balance, by 1 pH unit, which in turn is a factor of 10 in hydrogen ion concentrations, and no chemical additions. And the second experiment was take the same water and reduce the pH by 1 full pH unit with no chemical additions. Both experiments turned out to be robustly successful. The third experiment was to take a liver enzyme, alkaline phosphatase, called ALP, and to condition the space with intention first, and then just put a test tube full of the ALP into the space for 30 minutes, and then take it out again and measure it before and measure it after. And we found that in that 30 minutes, the activity, the chemical activity of the ALP can increase 30%. Very robustly successful. P-value is better than 1 chance in 1,000 that it could have occurred by random chance.
Now, Bill, when you did these experiments, let me ask you, because it wasn't clear to me from reading the material in the white papers. Did you have a number of people putting intent into this experiment?
The very first experiment were 4 people, all of us being meditators, long-time meditators. And so there's a whole process of the intention process to do this, yes. And we've done it with 6 people. We've done it with 2 people. We haven't done it with 1 person. We just were content with where we were. It isn't important at this stage in our development that we know whether 1 can do it or 2 together can do it. But it will be in time. In time, people will do that, and we'll probably get to do that. 1 person can do it is we already know. You already talk about the paranormal girls.
That's us. Well, yes.
Okay, let me say one more experiment because it's important. The 4th experiment was to take fruit fly larvae, a living system, and the intention was to increase the energy storage molecule, ATP to ADP. That is that which normally has just 2 phosphorus in the larger molecule. It is increased to 3. And that would make the larval development time more physically fit in their behavior and have a shorter larval development time because they're stronger. And we found that we could increase the ATP to ADP by about 15% with p-value better than 1 part in 1,000. And therefore, we found that the larval development time to the adult fly stage wasn't normally 28 days for this particular breed. It was 23 days. So it was reduced about 25% with a p-value better than 0.001. So here are 4 well-designed target experiments, robustly successful. Therefore, in today's world, and maybe even in his world, but in today's world, his assumption, and therefore the assumption of today's orthodox science and orthodox medicine is wrong, wrong, wrong.
Wow. Well, your colleagues must love hearing that, and you really can't.
No, they don't. They don't want to. They don't want to look at it.
No, I'm sure they don't.
Anyway, that was step 2. Step 3 was we learned how to broadcast an intention to groups of people anywhere in the world just using their name and address. And we applied this in the U.S. Over a distance of 1,500 miles. to reduce depression and anxiety in people. We did that in 2003 to 05. A person got their PhD for that in Holos University. So that was the first.
How did you measure that? I mean, depression is a kind of a tough thing to measure. Was it a subjective thing?
Absolutely. It is. There's a program called the Zung program, where you ask 20 questions, and it's self-induced. The person that is asked this series of questions we do every month, and we see where they are on it, and then we gather the statistics, and we found that they were able to do this again better than, after 8 months of continuously doing it, better than 1 part in 1,000 p-value. Second experiment of the same type, but now anywhere in the world, was to treat simultaneously 39 autistic children and their parents. So 2 intention statements in this case. And they're in a, well, I'll give you, first of all, it was robustly successful. In this case, the experiments running for a year were better than 1 part in 10,000. So experimental data was terrific. And
what does that mean in English? I mean, tell us so that everybody.
Well, let me let me give you 2 examples, and then I'll say what you're asking. On the 3rd of December 2013 was when I switched on the device in Payson, Arizona. On the 4th of December 2013, I got a call from a lady in Australia who had a 3-year-old daughter who had never spoken, and thus was up at night and made it difficult for the household, etc. That night, both of them, both the mother and the daughter, overslept. The mother got up in the morning and quickly went and woke her daughter. Her daughter looked up at her lovingly, and that day spoke 20 words, all cognitively in order.
That is incredible.
Let me give you another one of a young man from New York who was in grade 5 but functioning at kindergarten level, and likewise didn't speak. Very poorly, though, was able to use a mechanical device to communicate information, like a sort of typewriter. On October of 2012, 10 months later, his report card indicated that he was functioning very well at every aspect of grade 5.
Wonderful.
That's incredible, too.
Good
I mean,
grief.
these are amazing results that everybody can now understand and relate to, that these are real life results. To put the power of intention on this.
Yeah, if you go to my website, tiller.org, you'll see all this data written up and available for you. It was really very impressive to me that we could get such good results. Again, it's a similar self-assessment kind of study, and the ATEC was the one for the children. Again, the Zung for the parents. But the ATEC have 4 skill sets. One is communication skills. Second is sociability skills. Third are cognitive function skills. And fourth are physical health skills. And when I say what that in the data, when we went through the statistics, was that the data was positively beneficial at better than 1 chance in 10,000. That is, it means one possibility in 10,000 that all of this could have occurred by random chance.
My goodness.
So very robustly successful. The 4th experiment, and again I say you can go to my website, you can read the data. It's a white paper. I think that one's white paper 30, which means XXX, it's Roman numerals, and 31 and 32. The first one was white paper 16. And then the next experiment was to wean, and this began a year ago this past July, to wean people away from self-judgment and judgment of others to be self-compassionate and compassionate with others, and to recognize that they're part of the larger whole. And that experiment was in 2 segments of 6 months each. Again, in this case, there's the Rosenberg program. There are 4 programs anyway. The data, again, is better than 1 part in 10,000. So really beautiful work. The feedback, we've got about 150 testimonials from these people, mostly all of them in the U.S., in fact. And not only the people, but also the dogs and cats in their house. They have all behaved remarkably. They've changed their behavior patterns. Things come up. They perform and then say, I would never have performed that way. This is quite different kind of behavior for me. So I don't understand it, but it's great. Let's keep it on.
So the implications, Bill, for humanity with these types of studies. Oh my gosh, yes.
I mean, I think we can broadcast to a hospital anywhere in the world, baby ward, etc., to a jail, to schools, to all kinds of things. It's really interesting. Now, the one thing that we're doing, which is an expansion of this, and that is to increase consciousness in the world. I think that's where the real problem with humanity is. They're not very conscious, and they are not willing to do the work, most of them, to become really conscious. So we've been following David Hawkins' work and his map of consciousness, and we're getting great success, growing. The kids, it's interesting, if I go back to, we're doing this with the autistic children as well. We found, let's say in February 2014, the autistic children were at a David Hawkins scale level of about 320. Their parents were about 330. A year later, they were at 435, and the parents were about 433. And the issue that was interesting in 2012 for the children, 5% of the children were at a David Hawkins scale above 500, and 500 is the threshold of unconditional love. And the parents, there were 7% of them. So again, above the 500 scale. And a year later, there were 25% of the children above 500, and there were 33% of the parents above 500. So now it's interesting. David Hawkins said that if there are 14 people at 700 or above, then that's equivalent to 1 avatar at 1,000 as far as their effect on the world. And when I look at this data, I begin to see that maybe in continuing to broadcast this for 2 or 3 years, maybe we can indeed make some avatars.
You certainly could change everything.
Incredible.
Everything.
Incredible.
Yeah,
I mean these are all possibilities for us. We know. I mean, we remember the data from who was the guru, the famous one, Maharishi. He put together about 45, somewhere around that number of meditators in Washington, and their meditation was to diminish the banditry in Washington State, and the data supported that. So this is indicating similar sorts of things.
But in a much more powerful way, I think, and a much.
I think so, and bringing people into it, doing it themselves, trying themselves.
Having that kind of effect. I mean, we've got to take another break here, Bill. I hate to tell you.
That's okay.
We're hanging on every word here because we're next going to get to the device that people can actually buy and do this themselves. But in about 2 seconds, we got to go to break. And this, again, is so fascinating. The implications are enormous. The whole world can change from lighting up consciousness in this manner, and it's painless. It's easy. It's a lot. Oh, my God, I just can't say enough good things about this, Bill. I'm so glad you're on the show. Well, look, everybody, you are listening to Supernatural Girlz Radio, and we will be right back. Welcome back, everyone, to Supernatural Girlz Radio. I am your host, Patricia Baker. I'm here with my co-host, PK, and our extraordinary guest, Dr. Bill Tiller from the Tiller Institute. We are talking about some very profound things here and how we're going to all change the world. We can all get on board. You can go to tillerinstitute.com or tiller.org.
Tiller.org.
And you can learn all about what we're talking about tonight in greater detail. There's also access there to books, white papers, videos.
Are we still on?
We are on the air. Phil. That's why I'm telling everybody, this is the place to go to find out more information about what we've been discussing. The implications are enormous, not just raising consciousness, but actually affecting our health, our well-being, and ultimately the planet. There's a lot of potential here. Now, Bill, you have invented a device that is used in your experiments, but you're also now offering it to the general public. Can you tell us about this device?
The device that is being offered to the general public is an intention host device. It's an unimprinted intention host device. If you buy it, the idea is play with it. Learn how to play with it. Learn to meditate and play with it and try to imprint pH changes, try to imprint other changes. You've got to do the homework. I'm not going to do it for you. I mean, other than the broadcasting, I am, but those are experiments. Those are experiments showing what we humans can do if we try.
Now, Bill, let's say PK and I buy one of these devices, and we want to
cost you $250, I think, and I think there's a electromagnetic shield around it for shipping and all that stuff, so that you can store it. And I think that's $100.
When we get this device in our hands, then it's not imprinted, so we can imprint it with our own intention.
Correct.
And so then what do? Do we put it in a room where it's going to have kind of radiate out into our environment?
Basically, if you look at the issue of the broadcast stuff, what seems to be happening is that we broadcast to where the individual is in their house, anywhere in the world, and just by using their name and address. And we continue with the broadcasting. I like to run them for a year. After a couple of months, the room starts to be conditioned. The room itself appears to change. That's my inference from all the work that I've been close to. And that then radiates to everyone in the house, but particularly those who are named. I mean, those who are not named also get radiation, not quite as much as the individuals who are named, but and the animals do too. So that's now. Can I actually prove that at this point in time? The answer is no. It's a working hypothesis. I don't think we have the tools yet to experimentally prove it. But I think that's in our future. But the data speaks for itself. The proof is in the pudding. These results are huge. the feedback from the people is huge. They're huge.
So
And
we could put an intent on this device.
yeah,
Something like health and healing for the
Yep.
entire household. We could name the people in the household and keep the device, and then
well,
send.
you have to do a little more than that.
Okay,
I mean,
what
the
else?
point
do we
is,
do?
no, you guys got to think it through. The issue is, if you were going to show your house to people, would you leave it unclean?
God, no.
And therefore, you have to clean it. But the question is, we're talking now about larger dimensions of the universe than our distance time level. So you have to think twice and three times about what it means to clean at those levels of reality, etc., etc., etc.
So you're putting this intention forth through all dimensions of time and space, not
Yes.
just your one room, is what you're saying.
Yeah, it's true. And more, yes, there's a lot to it.
Yeah, I'm fascinated by this. Aren't you, PK? I want to get one of these things and practice.
I'm sitting here stunned thinking all the things that can come from this.
Yes.
It's just incredible.
It will be, I think it will be our future. And I think this new science that's developing will work well for us. We are on the threshold of moving from being subluminal beings, which we have been, to being superluminal beings, which we will be. And imagine what is going to happen as this new neurology grows in people and they start to have cognitive awareness of the superluminal reality as well as the subluminal, which they now have. And as time goes on, slowly the superluminal gets stronger and the subluminal gets weaker. And that maybe 2 centuries down the road, all of us are like that. And what we could cognitively be aware of is our present visual experience being totally changed.
Now, Bill, I'm going to ask you a question and take you a little further out into the esoteric world that PK and
I'm speculating now, by the way.
That's
but
okay.
it's feedback. It's feedback that we get from a lot of the autistic children that they're already there.
Yeah, they are. I'm sure.
Phenomenal.
Well,
Just phenomenal.
Here is my question also, because again, PK and I work a lot with all kinds of different energies, entities, portals. We've had people on the show that have worked with portals in Europe and have Patrice Chaplin was on. She's had some incredible things to say about this stuff. But is it possible to take your device and work with it in such a way that you're opening all of those dimensions up, that you could have access to all of that?
Let's be careful. I mean, I don't know I haven't pushed in that direction. It's just like an individual opening up their chakras abruptly and suddenly are in trouble because they've gone too far too fast. And opening oneself up too quickly is not a good idea. Because
yes, we've heard that.
So, and you probably have experienced some things of that nature, and you've experienced some people who have been very hurt by that. So, again, I would recommend the advice I gave about the person who wants to run the high hurdles. Start step by step, little by little, success. Start too fast, not success. So we, humankind, we're not yet built to create stars and planets out of ourselves. If we ever will be, I don't know, it's a possibility. We certainly, I think, play a role in the qualities of such entities. But not that Orthodox science knows anything about that, nor will it for a long, long time.
Well, you talk a lot about the different stages of our own human evolution. And I think that's an important thing to cover in light of what we're discussing. You start out with the first level, which is survival, and then you go through several levels until you come to the level at the top, which is one of service. And it sounds
service.
Like, yes, you are already at that level with the technology that you're using, because
maybe yes, maybe no. And the question is, I don't know how much the unseen are helping.
Right. But in the experiments that you're doing these days, it is all geared towards helping other people. And
in my case, yes.
Helping people to function better, like the autistic children and their families too, which are so affected by this.
True.
So it's already in a service kind of a place, which is very inspiring. Yeah. And that's something we can all hopefully achieve in our own lives in different ways.
We can all be kind to each other. We can all have the intention to radiate the best that we are to our fellows. All of us can do that.
Yes, we can all make an effort to do that. Now, I have a question too, and I think everybody will find this interesting. You talk about the conscious mind being able to process information at a certain speed, and the unconscious mind can process at a certain speed. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Well, the experimental data that I have seen, and there was a book written by a man by the name of Tor Noratranders from Denmark, and the book's title, I think, was something like Cutting Consciousness Down to Size. But the data that's relevant is the following. The conscious mind appears to have the capability of manipulating, dealing with less than 50 bits of information per second, and perhaps less than 12. The unconscious mind appears to have the capability of manipulating more than 50 million bits of information per second.
And that's a huge difference.
That's a huge difference. And so it says, let us look at that carefully. It says that the unconscious is doing all the work, almost all the work, if not all the work. Making plots, making calculations, making reports, and putting together little kernels of information, which it feeds to the conscious mind, so the conscious mind can feel that it's involved and alive. But the only kind of data that gets sent in this way is the data that the conscious mind gives meaning to. If the conscious mind gives no meaning to it, then the information appears to get dumped. So for us to grow in consciousness, it means we must give more things meaning and truly intend that information is meaningful to us, etc., etc. I mean, this again, we can begin to see the importance of intention.
Yes.
For us to gather this information, because your unconscious is doing huge amounts of work for you if you allow it, if you accept it, if you give it meaning. That's part of the path. That's why you meditate. That's why you're looking deeper into nature, deeper into the universe. And we're becoming more and more. These are parts of things that we need to do. We all can do it. We're all part of the divine. We're all souls. The connection between the soul and what we call the body, and that body is just like a car. It's just like a diving bell to go down to the ocean, bottom of the ocean, and do things. The the connection on one side of the acupuncture meridian system is with the soul self. On the other side, if qi is flowing through the acupuncture meridian systems, it is activating electric currents in the electric atom molecule body of the bio-body suit. So you can begin to see how communication can occur between our eternal and indivisible and invisible, self, the soul self, and all the way to the outermost level of the bio-body suit, and all between, ultimately, flow back and forth of information, giving meaning to these pieces of information. Work on them and test them.
Well, it's good advice.
Just don't swallow the stuff whole.
Right. And I think it's so important, too, when people want to put an intention out there, to tune into their body to see how it feels, because you can really, if you're sensitive, and I know most of our audience members, if not all, are very tuned into themselves, and you can feel when you're not coherent. You can actually feel the energy kind of splinter off in a different direction when you put that intent out there, and it doesn't.
And you can heal yourself anywhere in your body. Just put your attention on it and intend that it feel better. Consistent with the rest of your body, in tune with the rest of your body, etc.
Yes.
I'm no real expert, but I have a lot of working hypotheses. And I try to do experiments.
What you're saying, because it's time to take the power back. It's time to really take everything inside and know that we are ultimately responsible for our health, for our welfare, and for the conditions on the planet. So it's really growing.
Well, let me say something. Yeah. If I can say another thing relative to the David Hawkins work. The number 200 in consciousness is an important one, because below 200, it means anti-life, like what we might think of ISIS or ISIL in the Middle East. But above 500 is unconditional love. And a lot of humanity in at least the U.S. world and many other worlds, something really important is going on. Even 25 years ago, David Hawkins made certain statements, and they are much less than what we're able to do with our broadcasting. And I don't think it means that he was wrong. It just means we have come a long way in the last 25 years. It's just like the placebo effect. There was data provided when I was looking at this stuff back in about 1990. And 20 years before that, the placebo effect was maybe as much as 5%. And then in the last 25 years, it's gone up to 70%, 75%. And that sort of implies that some kind of coupler, I use coupler because that's what I have created with our device. There's some kind of coupler which connects the superluminal part with the subluminal part of nature. And so that, and I propose that it became two reciprocal subspaces, one of which was distance time. The other one was its reciprocal. Because it was a reciprocal, the mathematics suggests that for the distance time subspace, we have a lot of that data. So the properties of a material are the properties of distance time. That's the way they've been in the past. But when I do these experiments to connect to the other level of the reciprocal level of reality, then there's a conjugate part at that level, and I've created something which is the sum of the two, or the difference of the two. So the properties of material get changed. Now, it doesn't mean that this is alchemy in the old sense. It means it's metastable thermodynamics. We have to re-imprint our device every 3 months, it's thereabout, because if we want to keep it, it leaks. The engineering isn't good enough yet. It leaks, and so it will just decay. But if we re-imprint every 3 months, then we can keep it at a high level, which we do for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. Time will tell.
Yes. And again, it's just amazing what is possible with this technology, and that you found a way to measure things. I remember working for Bob Monroe at the Monroe Institute. And,
Oh, sure. I remember Bob.
Yeah. And,
Good man.
He was a great man. And Bob used to say, this is so many years ago, I don't want to tell you how many years ago this was, but Bob would say, we don't have the technology to measure this stuff yet. We're only measuring the exhaust that the car is putting out.
That's a good metaphor.
We don't have the technology to measure the engine and everything that makes this run. So yes, but I think, Bill, you're there. I mean, you found a way to measure this.
I'm on the path. Let's say I'm on the path, and I'm moving on to bigger events as time goes on. We'll see.
And it's so exciting.
Yeah, it is exciting. It is great adventure. I mean, I think for the Orthodox science community, for them to open their minds to start thinking about this meaningfully, giving it meaning. They're bright, capable people. There's so much for them to know if they will just start to give it meaning.
And not dismiss it, because that's what they like to do.
It's a cop-out.
It is a cop-out. That's exactly right. I agree. It is. And it's just trying to hang on to some old way that doesn't even make sense anymore. So,
no, but you can understand it's a very human sort of thing. Things that are new to many people are frightening, and especially if it bumps up against their own power structure, their own egos. It's challenging.
Yes, and I think
I can feel for them, but I'd like them to get off the pot.
Exactly. Yes, and I think it also has a lot to do with this false sense of control. And if they start entertaining what you're presenting, I would imagine the control freak out is going to just
all they have to do is be willing to look at it. I've provided 50 years of data for them out there. But it's scary for them. I do understand that, because it violates their belief system.
Yes. I mean, just think if everything PK and I talk about on this show with all our wonderful guests is true.
Oh, that is scary.
You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
That's right.
Anyway, it's good fun, too.
It is. And again, this is very life-giving, the potential of this technology and everything you're doing with the power of intention to really change things for the better. It's very, very wonderful to hear about it from you, and for all of our audience to be a part of this exciting transformation. And again, everyone, you can go to tiller.org and also the other website, tillerinstitute.com. Either one will take you to the same place, actually, and you can take a look at this device and see if it's something you want to experiment with. Now, I would imagine, Bill, you want to hear from people and how successful they've been once they get this.
I'd love to hear that. I think I'd like to see people really try, make a solid effort. It is easy to give pap, and it's easy to convince people that don't know. But good stuff, honest stuff, integrity stuff, that's solid. Proof is in the pudding. Make the effort. Keep making the effort. And why not?
Exactly. Now, if someone buys this device, let me just ask this question. And do you have a support staff or somebody they can call if they have questions and they want to work with us and they might need help?
Well, they might need a little help. You would have to, you'd probably have to, they won't want to give up their time, but within limits, we'll give help. If people write me an email, bill@tiller.org, and have a question, especially if they have serious questions, then I have time to listen to those and to respond. I did my best, but I don't expect to do things for other people. I mean, other than help them come awake.
Right. That's right. You want them to do their own work and to pay attention to themselves and see how far they can get awakening, which again is a very exciting journey that I would hope we're all on. And I know our audience is. We've got a great audience. They're real smart, real sharp
That's
people.
good.
And
That's
they
wonderful.
understand the concepts that are involved with this. And what might be fun is if anybody in the audience is going to purchase this device, let us know. Then PK and I can share our experiences with you, and we'll see what happens. And then we can report back to you, Bill, and let you know that our little group here at Supernatural Girlz is achieving. That would be a fun thing to do. So, oh my goodness, what a great show. You know, Bill, can't thank you enough for taking your time. We know you're very busy to come on the show and share all of what you know with our audience and what is possible. It is so exciting and so hopeful to hear this information coming from you tonight. It's just been wonderful. Thank you so much.
It's been a delight. Feel rejuvenated, much more information to gather.
That's right. So look, everybody, we're going to have to say goodnight. I also wanted to let you know our engineers are abandoning us to go on vacation. How dare they? It's so
And to
next
Europe
week.
yet.
I know. So next week, we will not have a live show, but we are going to repeat the Ed Edwards Show. That is one. If you missed it, tune in. It will air at our normal time, 7:30 to 9. The week after, we're going to be back with a brand new show. And you got to keep tuning in. It just keeps getting more exciting, everybody. So thank you so much for listening. And we will see you on the Blue Highway. Good night, everyone.